Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at SPL action. This week, I'm joined by my guest analyst, AlphaJackal, as well as our normal analysts, Wraithyn and Frost. Later on, we'll have an interview with the support from Obey, the one and only Inbowned. But first, we're here to talk about the games from last week. So let's start with SSG versus PK. And we're probably going to talk about Amaterasu a lot during this week because there are a lot of great Ama sets. But we got to talk about it with sort of the person who started this whole trend, which I think is Nika. I don't think you can give Nika Amaterasu anymore in the solo lane.
I don't think you can give anybody Amaterasu anymore in the solo lane. Just has fantastic control over the early game, scales extremely well. One of the best scaling warriors in the game in terms of the impact that she has, especially.
Yeah.
And you're giving that to a team which loves to run double auto-attack based gods. Mm-hmm. It's just sometimes even triple auto-attack based gods. If Cherry is going to pick up the gods that he did, like Kali or the Erlang Shen, it's just nuts to give that extra bit of attack speed boost. It's like giving them the Fafnir as well if they really wanted it, but on steroids in the solo lane.
Sure. Right, Frost, any thoughts?
That was a stomping.
Yeah, definitely.
The way that build is atrocious on that character. So to the point where it was at the start of the phase, we had the new items. We had Nika did play Amaterasu. I saw Ducky doing it in ranked. I saw FineOK pull it out for a game as well. But Nika does it again, even despite like an upcoming nerf and a few item changes. Berserkers, Shoguns, attack speed boots, and then add whatever you want. Throw in a sledge in there. Something's just so dominant about that build. He's been soloing Gold Furies, Phoenixes. I was going back for that video watching. He just walks up to Phoenixes. Whether there's a team there or not, he just walks up to it. None of his own minions. And he just starts smacking away at it.
Even more so with the Enhanced Fire Giant, I imagine.
Enhanced Fire Giant. He's got this mitigations on the 2. He could just do whatever he wants.
Sure. You think that we see some of this drafting and pick and bans as a result of trying to maybe ban out Dardas? Like we see the Afro, Hera, Rama ban in Game 2, similar bans in Game 1 early on especially. Is that, I think we've talked about this before, it doesn't really seem particularly effective to even try to ban out Dardas because, he just ends up playing Jingwei or something like that, right?
But who do you try and ban out on Space Station?
I agree.
Their check are insane.
If you're going to try and ban anyone out, I think it'd be Cherry. Not to say that he's the weakest link, but sort of he shines so well on the characters that he really, really wants that him playing meta is almost a detriment to them.
I still think, though, Cherry is probably very good at metacons, right?
Yeah. We talked about it like 2 weeks ago after Dardas just absolutely wrecked house on that Hera. And we had that conversation, and it kind of came to fruition where they spend so much time trying to ban out Dardas, or so many picks trying to ban out Dardas, that it just opens up the rest of the team to play whatever the hell they want. Like they literally, there was no restriction there, I feel, from anything anybody else is uncomfortable on, and they just put Dardas in something safe, and he's fine.
Let's see, maybe they should try and go down the Cherio route just because he does have good impact at the early game, 9 times out of 10. And if you can stop him having that good impact, you may have a chance to try and get the early game lead yourself. And with the composition that PK sort of had, that sort of early lead would have really benefited them. They just couldn't get it.
I'd say for this phase, at the start of the last one too, if anyone's going to be the weak point for SSG, it's going to be either Vote, but even with all the doubting where I go, SSG, unless Vote does something stupid, Vote's actually kind of come into his own now. I think he's found his pace.
Sure.
Cherry was also kind of an odd point for me, where if he didn't get the character that he wanted for a certain comp, because it is somewhat one-dimensional, he tries to sort of pick something else into it that may not practically relate to it, sort of, his Kabrak and Guardians. He doesn't whip out other junglers like any traditional junglers. He whips out a Guardian. I think he goes through his set of like, these are the characters I like, and then there's meta gods. Take away the ones he likes, and then maybe one of those just doesn't fit in the comp too well.
All right, moving on to SNG versus RNG. A bit of a tough set for Renegades after benching Solar Troll, and I think that's basically where we have to start here. What do you guys think of this? Is this sort of maybe just something to get Solar Troll in a better mindset going for the future, or I think he's going to be playing again in this week's games, if I'm not mistaken. So it just seems like a 1 week thing. What were your thoughts on the benching?
Is he?
I think so. I saw on his stream title that it sort of looked like he was not benched anymore. And I want to say that I saw that maybe yesterday.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if it's been official or anything.
No, man, I'm here digging like some paparazzi.
I haven't seen anything official about it. But
okay. Maybe I'm just speaking out of my league here.
I mean, it's a good conversation point to have. There's the two side branches. There's one side, he's back on the team after 1 week off. The other side, he's benched a bit more permanently. If he's been just benched for the week and he's come back into the team, then that's obviously just been a massive wake-up call to him, for him to look to improve the issues that were stopping him from being in the team for this last couple of games. At which point, good work to him, good on the team for recognizing the fact that he has, just tried to make amends for this issue, and tried to make amends for the environment that he was most likely going to be creating at that point. But on the other hand, if he's still looking to be, out of the squad for this next week, maybe the next few weeks, it comes to the point where you have to realize that the amount of practice that they will have with Row at that point, it would almost be better suited for them to keep Row on as the main roster going into the Smite World Championship, or going into that second phase finals if they do qualify for it. Just because you're trying to get Solo Troll back up to speed at the end of the phase, and it could be just too short of a time.
Maybe. I didn't even consider that. What are your thoughts on the benching, Frost or Wraith?
I think it's a good move. I think, it's unfortunate, right? He was certainly... I think in each of the games that he played in that I've seen, he's performed well. I think, except for there was one where it was against Ghost where he had a great Thor game and then the next game he didn't, right? And that was it, right? But other than that, he's been consistent. He's been performing well. I'm a little discouraged to hear that, it got to the point where he had to be benched.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I think if this was just like the regular season and everything was normal, I think, I would be a lot more critical of it.
Sure.
But, and I hate to do the COVID excuse or anything like that, but, it's impacting a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely locked up. You get frustrated with the way things are. Every day is blending together. And on top of that, you're one of the bottom 3 teams, even though you feel like you're playing well. Like, I don't want to excuse his behavior, but I think it's, even personally, like my motivation, I'm snappier, things like that. I think it affected everybody differently, and I would love to be able to blame it on that because he's played well and has not been a problem from what I understand on other teams that he's been on.
Sure.
But, I think taking time off, coming back, apologizing, realizing you're never, ever, ever going to get another shot if you get thrown off a team for your attitude. You will never play again. Look at Divios, right? Nobody's putting Divios. Divios could be the best player in the world. He's never playing again. Nobody wants that. And so hopefully he learned his lesson. I sent him a little DM. He and Laz were up at the house working out with me a couple weeks ago, and I got to know him a little bit better. Tell him to pick his head up, get back in it. I think you hear a lot of this stuff at lower end teams, like general frustration.
Sure.
But again, I'm glad that he's tried to work things out, and I hope he's back in this week.
Any thoughts from you, Frost, about the benching?
I think it's got to do with his mental. I don't know if that was the choice to make. Like, on one hand, he's very talented. I don't think he's a shot caller. Even from the start, this team, I cannot put my finger on which one of them would be the suitable shot caller. Yes, I say Jake, but he's the newest one. He's got his own play style that they've not so much castrated, but he's not playing, what he's known for, and that fire just doesn't seem like it's there. It's almost like he's got on adult shoes when he used to have his Heelys and just flying around, making circles around everybody. This is, he kind of brings the question, though. Is it a take a break, find your motivation? We saw in League of Legends, Doublelift did that. Or is it we need to start thinking about how we're going to win? We need to find a new player. We need to swap out now because then we're going to have enough time to actually make an impact for Worlds. Because as it gets closer there, you start with the attitude of, okay, we're learning, we're improving, we're not the best, we're nowhere near it, but we'll get there. Time starts ticking, keeps going. You've not really left the ground much. That starts playing with your mental. And I know SOT is super competitive. He's been on some highs. He's been on some great teams.
Sure.
I don't know if this is going to be a wake-up call for him. It might kick that desire back in as well, to sort of just kind of go back to your ex-girlfriend. But I think maybe in the end, he deserves to be on a different team. I don't know what the environment is for it. I don't know if he can find a different team.
I mean, that's the unfortunate situation, is that we can only really speculate what the true reasons behind it were, what's the exact impact of it was. And it's going to take a long time for it all to really filter out, be that through official sources or unofficial sources. But I don't know. I sort of am leaning more towards the side of Frost at this point, because I personally didn't know Solo Troll that well, but obviously you guys being over in North America, you guys have played with him, talked to him a bit more than I have done, and it is refreshing to see that sort of insight. And I think comparing it to Doublelift is a really strong, it's a really strong metaphor, I feel. Sure.
Okay, moving on to Ghost versus E United, and I only have one note for this set, which is clean from Ghost. Is there anything that stood out to you guys about this Ghost and E United set at all, or was it just a simply sort of a clean win for the Ghost boys?
I think you could just put in brackets next to that, methodical, and you'll be exactly correct.
Methodical.
It pretty much was methodical from Ghost. They didn't really take too much risk, and they still managed to get away with, dismantling this E United team left and right. And it wasn't just one lane that fell apart for United. It was one lane fell, then the next one shortly after. Yeah. And it looked very clean for Ghost, like almost like a scrim for them, to say the least.
Sure. I love Sylvanas, but I've asked about it before. A lot of people are not happy about Sylvanas. I mean, why is there a tree in this first game?
That was a really good comp and a good draft, though. I actually really like that. Sure. Even from being a super Ghost fanboy, I saw that comp and I went, "Oh, wow! They could actually maybe be in some trouble here." Because you got Erlang, Ul, Freya, Sylvanas with the tier.
Yeah,
you are going to be in the center, walking everybody to whatever it is that needs to be shredded. That's it. It's you're kind of supporting the support in that regard, while he supports you from the inside, and then you just kind of keep moving on. Snoopy decided to go mobile tree,
the Zoom tree.
I've seen that build. I've done that build. It's funny. It's definitely like, you're not going to catch me, I'm not going to die kind of thing. But he didn't build anything that would make it go, I'm going to root myself in place with my team and keep us moving.
Sure.
He just kind of got run over once you got to the mid game.
I also don't feel like you can pick Sylvanas into Hebo, Hu Yi, two of the best gods at dealing with the Sylvanas, just because the slows that they have. And then once more on top of that, there's a Hombat and a Hercules on the other side. By the way, how did PBM get Hercules 2 games in a row? I will not understand that. I will never understand that. But the tree was just sort of cannon fodder, so there wasn't really much opportunity for Snoopy to engage, because if he did, he just died instantly to whoever was around, whether it be Sam or Mike, pushing them into Captain Twig and Panda Cat's damage.
Any other thoughts about this game? I mean, I did say it was a clean set. I think both games at the end, it was more than almost a 10k gold lead for Ghost at both of the games. And I think they were ended both pretty quickly. I know the website doesn't give us the game time, but just by checking the gold here, it seems like they were not terribly long games.
Yeah, first game was just shy of 26 minutes. The second one was 23 and a half.
Yeah, so pretty quick and clean from Ghost.
I like the United drafting this time around. It reminded me of Phase 1 when they started drafting these very sort of like, well, then it was the PvE style and artillery, and they wouldn't work, but then after a few weeks, they started working. They started clicking. They started to really, okay, we figured out what we're going to do with it and the identity for it. In game 2, they also went Horus Achilles, 2 frontliners, stunning right in front of them with a Kali and Oleron and a Freya. So they're just both going to walk at something, hold it down, and then 3 auto attackers are going to completely shred it. They got answered, unfortunately, with Ghost having just straight up dive. That's it. It's like they've also gone against this team enough to know if one of us gets caught out, we can't run away. We have to take that fight, and that's it. They were fearless now. They went in, took the fights. Herwin was getting jumped on the all around.
For Hurry, that's it.
He was getting dove at the start of every fight. I don't think he existed.
No, I think it's very difficult for an Oleron to exist against a Thor, just because the Thor lands down on you, and if you don't have beads, you have no opportunity to get your ult off in that fight, especially if it's the late game. It's just curtains. And I think the whole draft that E United had in that second game relied on Harrowwind being there for the Sanctified Field for it to work off. Just because the limited amount of CC that they had, well, I say limited amount of AoE CC. It's not something like the Final Keishin Chen or the Sanford Soccer, Thors and Humbats, the Humbats from game 1.
Yeah.
It was just more centralized, almost single target CCs and stuns, which you sort of need to complement with that Oleron ult. And if the Oleron wasn't there, the composition sort of did fall apart, and as did United.
I think we see this again later. I think they're going to patch out the problems that they had for this, because it is super single target. It's almost like they anticipated we're going to pick one person off and then go do something else and never actually take a full-on team fight. But they got the team fight straight in the face.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult to avoid team fights when one person's global and the other person could just teleport to the fight very quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Inbowned, the support for Obey Alliance. Talk mostly about Phase 2 and Phase 1 of this year, and maybe look ahead to Worlds as well. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm sitting here with the support from Obey Alliance. That is Inbowned. Do you prefer Bobby or Inbound, or what's a good thing to call you?
I prefer Bobby. I like when people call me Bobby.
Sure. All right, Bobby. You know, you guys have recently won a couple games in Phase 2. How's that feel? You know, you didn't have too much success in Phase 1, so I'm sure winning some of these games is bringing a bit of morale boost to the teams. How are you guys feeling after these recent wins?
We feel like everything's starting to come together. We feel like we're finally becoming a team. We're starting to mesh. Like everything is just starting to feel good finally. These couple of wins have just really kind of pushed us over the edge, and I don't know, we've kind of just been more friendly, and we've expected more wins coming out of scrims and everything just feels better.
Sure. You know, this has been, a lot of people have been talking about how this is a particularly long phase with the triple round robin and things like that. And I've been asking some of the other players that I've been able to interview about burnout. Is that something that you guys are dealing with? And if so, how are you guys dealing with burnout? And, you know, is that something that you guys talk about as a team? Or, you know, just personally, maybe how you're affected by the long phase?
I don't think we've really brought it up at all. It hasn't really been a problem so far. Obviously, it is a really long phase, and they were only a third of the way through, so it hasn't exactly came in full force yet. But none of us have really had a big problem with it. As far as I know, no one's spoken up, said that they need a couple days or anything, and I haven't been bothered by it at all. I like scrimming still. I look forward to scrimming. So far, as far as I know, we have not had a problem with burnout.
Okay, so as the team on the whole, everyone's feeling fresh and ready to go, because you know we've seen some things sort of happen recently. I bring up maybe the Solar Troll benching that happened, where the team environment and his mentality was maybe not in the right place for them as a team. That's not happening with you guys at all?
No, not yet. It is not. I think it was a little bit different with them because they had really, really high expectations coming into this phase, and they hadn't met them at the beginning so far. So I feel like that kind of affected their mental a little bit.
Sure. You're talking about expectations a little bit, and I know maybe we're talking about phase 2 now, but what were your guys' expectations coming in? I mean, like, I know that this is like a new team, and you switch jungles early on in phase 1 and things like that. So, talk to me a little bit about the expectations coming into phase 2 here.
We actually had really high expectations. We didn't get a ton of scrims heading into this phase, so we were a little behind on the meta. That's why you saw like the older run let through. He was very, very strong, and we played against him, and we kind of played very, very bad the first 2 weeks.
Sure.
After that, our expectations were a little bit lowered because of how poor we played, but we knew it was because we didn't know the meta. We weren't practiced enough. Other teams were prepared more. And now since like those first 2 weeks had passed, and since then we felt like we've had a good chance of winning every single week.
Yeah.
And now that we're here at this point, we feel every week from here on out, we feel like we have a very, very strong chance of winning.
Sure. I like that you bring up those first couple weeks, because we talked a little bit with the analysts earlier on, I want to say maybe like week 2 or 3, about because this is such a long phase, maybe it gives teams like yours who are still sort of meshing together, there are some new pieces and some newer players to the SPL, these earlier weeks in a long phase give you guys some time to experiment. Is that something that you guys were thinking about? Were you guys maybe considering the long phase and maybe using this time early on to experiment with certain picks and stuff? Especially because, like, I remember Ducky was playing like mages in the solo lane and things like that. So is that something that you guys were thinking about or doing?
Thinking back, I don't think we were really like actually thinking about that, but it does kind of explain how and why we did stuff and why we banned stuff, because we thought the mages were very strong. We thought Oleron was not that strong. We thought Freya was not that strong. We thought Hecate as an item wasn't that meta breaking when it really was.
Sure.
And because of that, we did have those first couple weeks to like throw away. We didn't have to. You didn't have to win those games. Obviously, it would help, but you
yeah,
don't
of
have
course.
to win them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say looking back, about after week 2, we kind of used it as like a ignore those first 2 weeks. We have 19 games or 19 sets left after those first 2. Like, we are fine. Don't worry. We start 0-2. Who cares? We can go 19-2 from here on out.
Sure.
So we just kind of like use that as I don't want to say motivation, but as like an explanation and like kind of how to build us up, because we had so much time left.
Sure. I want to maybe focus in a little bit on your playstyle in duo lane. We've sort of been seeing how the meta has shifted towards a dive meta a little bit, maybe more than a little bit right now. Is that something that's impacting some of the picks that you're trying to pick in support?
I feel like duo pressure is kind of like the biggest thing, more so than dive.
Okay.
And that's why you've been seeing a lot of these supports like the Ymir, like the Mulan, like the Herc and the Horus. Like, all these gods give you pressure in duo, especially because the ADCs you're pairing them with are usually later game. Heim isn't going to do that great until later game, but he is strong early. Jing's obviously very late. Freya's late. Ola runs late. Like, all these gods just want to be able to get to late game, and that's what supports are basically essentially trying to do. They're just trying to get space for their ADC and get farm for their ADC, and that's where, in my eyes, that's where I see support is right now.
Do you think Ymir is like a really highly contested pick? Because, I hate to like bring it up, but Ymir hasn't really won too much in the SPL, either on you or even when other people play it, other supports. So why is it that we see a lot of teams going for the Ymir?
I think it's more so that the favorite is just not really playing Ymir. We play it and we're not seen as favorites, so and we've lost a lot with it, and that's kind of when we were learning.
Sure.
When we played it against Ghost, the Ymir felt really good, looked really good, and we had a really good chance of winning that game. We were like 800 health away from winning that game. When Jake played it too, Jake looked really good on it, and it looked like it was gonna win. But I just think like as a team, the team that has the Ymir usually isn't as good as the team without the Ymir. So less I think it's the Ymir pick, and more so just overall the teams are just better, so they're winning.
Sure. I see. I think that makes at least a little bit of sense in terms of like maybe some of these better teams get supports that are maybe a bit more highly prioritized or something like that, and unfortunately the weaker teams end up with Ymir. I hate to bring it up though, but the games that you guys have won have been the ones where it's basically been banned from you. Is that sort of like a streak at strat? A lot. I bring it up a lot because the analysts on my show have been pretty adamant about hating Ymir in the support role. So I'm just trying to pick your brain and really see like what makes this guy tick and why people are still picking him.
I just think Ymir is very strong early and he's very strong late. His mid game is kind of like a weird point because he's not tanky enough. He does do a lot of damage, but he doesn't feel that tanky, and he feels like he's pretty easy to pick. But late game, like as far as I can like just think, Ymir Wall is one of the best late game Guardian abilities. It's like right there with Fafnir 2 in Dragon form, or as a base ability, Ymir Wall is so broken, especially in jungle fights around fire, around gold. A good wall can win you a game, or you can just play it slow and wall a carry and force their beads and then take the wall down immediately, and you can re-engage in 4 seconds like after dropping your wall. I just think his wall is just what makes Ymir so broken, and then his early game dual lane allows you to be able to play for that early game pressure, and then you can just play for late game if you have to because of the wall.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. So basically you're saying the wall, the positional advantage that you can get basically trumps everything in the late game.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you I think we're sort of done with the Ymir for now. Sorry that I was sort of like hammering it home,
Yeah, you're good.
Now that you mentioned Sino, can you maybe talk about integrating him? Like maybe what were some of the harder things to work out in bringing a new jungler in like the middle of a phase?
He just doesn't like playing normal gods. I don't know. He likes playing Nike. I guess Erlang's pretty normal, but like Vamana. He likes those tankier warrior jungles, and he had like a lot different play style. He loves to engage and he loves to start off fights. We're trying to play like more of the adapting style of me engaging or James engaging all the time, and then him following up and just like cleaning up a fight.
Sure.
So it was actually a completely different play style, because before it went from me engaging literally every fight or James having to do it to Sino doing it 80-90% of the time now. And he finds some things that just doesn't make sense how he gets in, gets a kill, and lives. And he's still been doing that. Some of the things he does just don't make sense, but he does it.
Sure. Well, now you talked about some of the hard things to improve. What are the things that you think you guys improved on the most in phase 1, or maybe even early on in phase 2? Because you said maybe you were slumping a little bit early on in phase 2, and you're sort of picking it up right now.
Yeah, I feel like our early game, we would just never fight anything in the early game at the beginning of the phase. Like Ghost just did anything they wanted to. Mike could path to our back camps and we wouldn't punish him. Sam would do our back camps and we'd just watch him do it. Panda Cat would push up by himself and we kind of just let him do it. And eventually we just learned, okay, this is our jungle. Like, we got to defend it. We can't just let him walk all willy-nilly through our jungle.
Yep.
And eventually we just started warding their buffs, and we started being able to play aggressive because we were kind of having a plan of what we would want to do heading into the early game and into the like early mid game too. Kind of knew what we wanted to do, planned for it, had everyone get their power spikes out of the way so then we could be stronger at these buffs and at these Gold Fury fights. And yeah, I think early game is just like the biggest thing we improved on. Eventually our mid game came along, and now we're just trying to get used to our late game and get our late game comfortable enough. And I think we can do that, we'll be in a really good spot.
Yeah, definitely. I know you were talking a little bit about how the level between console and PC Pro League was a significant sort of hurdle for you. And I've talked to other pros, and Barra especially mentioned that, like, you know, there's a big gulf between what he would call like Grandmasters ranked and like scrims, and then even between scrims and SPL, there's a big gulf as well. And as someone who's sort of like maybe come up through an adjacent scene, being the console scene, is that something that you feel as well?
Yeah, for the most part, it was basically just like an extra couple levels I'd have to get through. Like, PC players would start and they would have to work their way up to Grandmasters. And once they would get to Grandmasters and they could start scrimming at an SPL level, it's scrimming SPL teams or SPL level teams like Sanguine of last year, or teams like on that level, that caliber teams.
Sure.
You would have to get used to that. And then after you got used to scrims, you'd have to get used to the SPL level, like of actual games and playing on LAN. I know we're not playing on LAN right now, but playing on LAN is even going to be like a whole new beast that we're going to have to get used to get accustomed to. Same with like some of the other younger players are gonna have to get used to it.
Sure. Can you maybe be a little more specific, maybe about like the difference that you find, especially between scrims and the SPL? Because you talked earlier about how in phase 1 you were like winning scrims and things like that, but it wasn't translating at all to the matches in the SPL. So what do you think was like missing between those two for you guys?
Well, I mean, it was us too, but it's SPL teams also.
Yeah.
In scrims, people kind of play with half a brain, and they will just kind of do whatever they want, thinking like, I'm just gonna walk through here. It's scrims. I'm not gonna get punished. And then they wouldn't get punished in scrims, or even if they did get punished in scrims, they're still gonna think to themselves, it's only scrims. I'm just gonna walk through here. Or this blue buff's up. I'm gonna try to do this blue buff as there's a 3-man rotation and he's half health and he's just doing it anyway. So people just aren't as smart in scrims as they are in SPL. In SPL, everyone will play their best. They'll make sure a play they're making is like a 90% sure thing. In scrims, it's like 50-50, I'll take it. So that's kind of the biggest change between scrims and like actual SPL games.
All right, well, I'm basically all out of questions here, Bobby. This is the time in the interview usually when I start asking who you got beef with and things like that. So, if you got anyone you want to rant about or rave about, you can go for it now. Otherwise, I want to just give you a huge thanks for coming on. And if you want to shout out anyone, feel free to give some shout outs. And, the floor is yours, Bobby.
All right. Well, I hate playing against Wrong-You. I literally just cannot stand laning phase. Even in ranked, Wrong-You and Net are the worst. They will literally pick the best gods and like their scrim gods.
Yep.
They will block them in every single game. You're playing against Horus and Freya and Jing Wei every game, and it is the worst playing against those two.
Sure.
Shout out the boys on Obey.
Yeah.
Love James, love Jacob, love Alex, love Sino, and I guess I kind of love Kassir, our coach. Yeah, it's been great playing with him, great learning with him. I'm excited for the rest of the split. I hope I get moved up Hazer's support list in the upcoming couple weeks. I play 7th. I'm up 1 spot.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll shoot for 6th the next
time.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, I think that's it. That is really it.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you too.
All right, then. Moving on to Renegades versus Obey. And my notes here say Ama had another good showing for the Obey boys. I think Ducky played it in game 2. Looked very good in Ducky's hands. The other thing I wanted to say is, a little bit of these eager strats from Sino and Wolfie. I don't know, Erling, Shen, and Tarai has me feeling all sorts of, eager nostalgia. What are your guys' initial thoughts about Renegades versus Obey?
It took this long for them to pick Wolfie's Ra, and I'm surprised. I am very surprised.
Sure.
A couple weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it took them this long to pick Wolfie's Ra as a confidence pick rather than as a let's just pick it and see what happens.
He's got one of the nastiest Raws in the league.
For sure.
Really good on that character. I'm just happy because Ra's coming back. Ra's one of my favorite characters. He's getting another buff.
Oh my god, he's going to be so annoying next patch.
Oh, yeah.
But it gets rid of one of the big
frustrations. I just know he's getting buffed.
The biggest frustration factor while playing Ra is you activate your 2 and you just get slowed to oblivion still. You now have it as a cleanse from slows for 0.6 seconds. That's the big thing. In fact, it's got the same treatment as Kukulkan.
Sure.
He's got the heals to back it himself up. He's got good wave clear alongside that, and he's got the same slow immunity and a bit of safety whilst compared to the Kukulkan. He's just, I'm saying it right now, he's straight up just a better Kukulkan. There is no reason to pick Kukulkan these days. You just pick Ra instead.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yes. Which I'm okay with, because I hate when Kukulkan's in the meta.
Yeah, because no one ever has a game plan for it. It's just back it up, try not to lose it. Like, they don't show face until you're about to do an objective or a Phoenix or something. Just the Kukulkan playstyle, I can't stand it.
Just Kukulkan, stand under tower, clear wave, rotate when we tell you to. You've done your job.
I'm just happy to see these big, long range burst mages come into play, because like that's exciting smite to watch. Like I think the most boring smite is when you've got like Merlin and hunters in the mid lane and everything else. I think we talked about this on another episode, but like when I first started watching SPL, I was in like late season 3, and like you got like Scylla and Ra and Thoth when he was still like the cannon, right? Where you're down 10k on the Phoenix, you got the last ditch defense, and all of a sudden out of nowhere you just laser down 2 people. And like you can come back off of that, or you know, you have this really tense team fight somewhere, and all of a sudden like you're the guy, it's on your shoulders to make it happen and change the tide of the battle. Like that's cool. Not this like tick damage auto attack bullshit where you just sit there and you fall asleep while you're watching the games.
What a guy to have the game on his shoulders, you know.
With
the setup, he was I was watching. It was Mifflin and Dolson kind of keeping track of all the shots that he was taking. There was one where they had the CC set up, but I think he beats it or something. I don't know whoever it was that they set up.
It was off of Sino's CC. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
And he got away from it, and you think, oh man, Wolfie's about to miss, but it's as if he anticipated it. He anticipated them getting away from that and still hit it. Had them both screaming, had me screaming. Oi.
Oh,
give me
I'm thinking of a different one
right here.
I'm thinking of a different one then, because Wolfie was on my porch. We were talking about. I was like, dude, like you popped off on Raw, like that's awesome. And he's like, yeah, I missed this one ultimate. I'm still mad about it. And I'm like, like what? Like he's like, yeah,
that is
Sino
Wolfie.
said he had
That
the
is
CC.
Wolfie.
He's like, Sino said he had the CC, and then he used it, but he didn't call it, and so I had to freewheel it. And I was like, oh, and you missed? He's like, yeah, it was like the one shot I missed the whole game. And I was like, dude, like, how do you live with yourself?
No, that is Wolfie. That's 100%
like
Wolfie. I believe that.
70% ability hitter. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
sure.
You know,
No, he's got to go. He's going for broke. I think they found an answer to their not their support problem, but it did seem like the pace had to be going off of inbound. This allows Sino and Wolfie to kind of just these two take a fight of their own accord without the support being there. It's like, here, I'll set you up for the mid, I'll set you up on the jungler, just take a shot. It's just these two going off in their like guerrilla tactics, and it overrides the whole need for a 3v3 mid combat.
Yeah, I just speaking of this set in particular, like I kind of hate that like oh, of course they beat Renegades, they have Row. Like I thought they played well. Like they came with a game plan. They fixed a lot of mistakes they were making. To your point, Frost, and they like didn't play around that core mid 3v3. Like I don't know. It's like people who watch the game will sit there and be like, oh, well, they look a lot better. They're executing cleanly. And then like the masses go, yeah, they beat the hell out of Row or whatever. They kind of did the second game, especially when it was Mulan and they corner canced him on the blue buff and everything like that.
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
That was, as a solo laner, you sort of feel for that.
Yeah. I don't know that I would have done that, although I do that every night. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I don't think they're gonna ever get the credit that they deserve. I mean, they can be the top team in the league, and there'll be some excuse for it. That's my biggest gripe with the SPL right now.
I think they played extremely well, and I'm not taking anything away from them because, like you said, they are one of the most mechanically gifted teams, I'd say, out there. It just hasn't really worked out for them too well. But they also did catch Renegades on what can only be described as an off day. This wasn't a particularly great set from them as a whole. I don't think too much more to say about that. I mean, in game one, specifically, if I have a Naja support, if I have a Cerberus in the solo lane, I don't want Merlin as my mid laner. I want Goth, I want Ra, I want Kakolgan, I want Isis, I want something with a big, heavy, just put them right here and I will kill them sort of ultimate sort of
I
playstyle.
despise that pick so much, especially after the Merlin bug change, whatever it is, where he can't put his damage underneath you.
Yeah.
I don't understand the pickup of a Naja into no setup whatsoever. You got a Ram, a Pele, sorry, Merlin. That's what he mentioned, and that's it. There's no burst there. It's all overtime. We're gonna shred something. That's not what Naja's for. It's I'm going to take you out of the fight, and when you come back down, we're all just going to point at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so whenever Awesome Jake took somebody up into the sky, it was pretty much guaranteed that they were going to live on landing, unless Ben got like the best combo off on the Merlin. It didn't happen.
Right.
I feel like Neja works with those big ults. Like that's it. Like, that's the only time I would ever feel like playing Neja.
Just big ult, or there's somebody who does a lot of damage on the ground. You're trying to take it away. I could see the logic. Maybe he's trying to get rid of Set, while he's on the ground ulting. But aside from that, I couldn't see a reason to pick a Naja here.
No.
Unless you want to take it away and you don't want to get raw sniped. Inbound does have a Naja.
All right, now the last set of a week, an unfortunate shortened week due to circumstances, which we will explain in the next game. But the last set of this week was Sanguine versus Space Station Gaming. I think a lot of us expected that this one would be, a big, long set, 3 games, something like that. But SSG basically, they're riding high and really, really destroyed Sanguine here. And all I have is more great Ama games from Nika. So if you guys want to wax poetic about Ama being great again, here you go. Here's your chance.
That's just how it is. Sanguine is SSG Light, or SSG is Sanguine Prime.
Sure.
It feels like they have the exact same style. SSG just has more rhyme for the reason, more bang for the buck, and they pull it off just way better. It's a mirror match, but you're going against your shadow clone who knows every dark little secret that you have.
Sure.
I think also, whilst Nika grabbed all the headlines in this set, Rafa and Vo in the dual lane they popped off in this set. They got the exact same picks in both games, and I don't know. It goes back to that thing. If they're banning out 3 gods, 2 of which are against Dardes, and the other one is the Freya against Vo, understandable that one. But then they're giving Nika the Amaterasu again. They're giving Rafa and Vo the exact same dual lane that they just controlled the game with, and just allowed them to shred these objectives and take fights where they really wanted to take them. And they just play them again, and it's the exact same story. Teams just, and I feel like they did better last season in the best of 5s rather than the best of 3s.
Sanguine, that season,
but they
or SSG
better. I think both. I think all teams to the SPL just adapted better during the best of 5 sets. Their picks and bans were a lot more varied. Their bans specifically were more tailored towards the set rather than towards the team that they were facing. Or the meta, as well. So, I don't know. The best of 3s that we have in this season sort of... I don't know if that is the biggest reason or if that is the reason for this going on, but it does feel like teams are just sticking to their guns rather than reacting to what happened in Game 1.
Sure. Right, Frost, anything to add about this set?
So I think it was the biggest disappointment of the weekend because I think we were all expecting a 2-1 barn burner, and it just kind of seemed like Sanguine came out and just laid an egg. I think that was my disappointment. It was that we didn't get more Smite on Sunday.
Sure.
Like it was over by like 4:30.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think Sanguine executed well. I think they could have done a lot better. Space Station looked clean as always, and they are establishing why they are the current leader in my eyes.
Sure.
I think it's them and Ghost.
I think you have sort of a top 3 right now forming of SSG, Ghost, and Radiance. Although we might have to talk about Radiance in a bit.
Yeah.
Sanguine right now just occupy that 4th spot, just touching on the top 3. All right. Then just underneath that, you have PK, Obeya pushing up there as well. Renegades of the United right now occupying the bottom 2.
Sure.
Ooh, you put Renegades that low? I like it.
I think that's just based on the last couple of 2 or 3 weeks. Yes, they've been performing quite well, but they've also just hit a big stumbling block this week, and that's got to factor into any sort of thing. Next week they could just bounce back. They could swipe the floor with their competition. They could just beat Ghost 2-0, beat Renegades, beat Space Station 2-0, and I'm just gonna go, okay, yeah, they're a top seed again. That's just how this league is.
Yeah.
All the teams have the potential to beat each other. Make no mistake about it. Just because I said that United and Renegades are in those bottom 2 slots right now, doesn't mean they have no chance of winning. They always do.
See, I hold the chance that it's more so the mid tier ones. They can take games off the top, they can lose games off the bottom, but the bottom compared to the top, that's more so like the how badly are you trolling or how depressed are you right now? These are sort of wellness check games.
All right, I guess that brings us to sort of the elephant in the room of this week, which is this postponed game between PK and Radiance. And I know I've checked the schedule now, and it seems like this game will be replayed in the last week of the SPL. What do you guys know about this? I know maybe there's not so much that you guys can say, but this is kind of an unusual thing to happen in our league. What are you guys' thoughts on the postponement, and is there anything interesting that you thought this could happen? Like, could this affect some of the games in the future to any degree?
I'm not saying they should have. I'm not condoning it, nor am I saying they shouldn't have. I'm just surprised that they didn't like DQ or anything. They're actually postponing the match,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it, right? I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
Cyclone made a tweet that said there's coronavirus in the apartment.
Yeah. Oh, really? Right. Cyclone made a tweet that said that? I did not know that.
Coronavirus in the apartment, I hate quarantine, or welcome to quarantine, or something like that, right? Like that was the tweet that went out, right? So assuming that happened, one of them went out, or multiple, and gave the rest of them corona, or they're in a position where a large part of their team can't play due to corona.
Sure.
Right? That is my assumption based on Cyclone's tweet. Because there's not much else that would explain why. And who was supposed to play? It was Radiance Knights?
Yeah, Radiance versus Pittsburgh Knights.
Yeah, so the Knights already had a set that weekend, right? So it's clearly not a problem with them.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think of is some kind of internet issue, which I highly doubt. Because they're in apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And it's too timely with Cyclone's tweet, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
Using that as the assumption, my guess is that their set against Sanguine this week is probably postponed too. Maybe, unless they're on the road to recovery and they're feeling fine. But I think that's absolutely the right call. If that's the case where it is just like you don't want to force somebody to take a DQ because of a global pandemic, right? And I mean, you got people who, like our neighbor got it, right? And they've been getting their food delivered. They literally haven't left the house. And it could have been something as stupid as a mail person coughs on your mail.
Right.
So to punish them for that, I think is a little wrong. I think, if that is the case, so I don't think anybody should have been DQ'd.
No.
You don't want to eliminate the set because that could affect the standings.
Right.
Actually, if anything, if I'm PK, I'm kind of happy with it because now I get 8 weeks to prepare for one of the top seeded teams versus playing them now. And I get a break to either scrim or work on something else or what have you, right? So I don't know. I don't think there's really a downside for anybody. If that is the case, and it is based around Cyclone's tweet where he's talking about COVID in the house, then makes a lot of sense.
COVID in the house.
That's basically what he said in the tweet.
Yeah,
I did.
I was just going to say that.
I did find it here. It just says COVID-19 in the apartment. Love quarantining. I mean, so he's not mincing his words about it, I guess.
Yeah, my read into that. We talked about it before. My read into that is he was quarantining, and maybe some other people didn't take it as seriously as he was.
I can read it. I can read that as well. And I think going on to the question of whether the set should have been a DQ or not, I'm 99% sure it should not have been a DQ, but there's this 1% thing that tells me if there was something that went on, like one person went out to a place that they've been specifically told by that organization, by hires themselves to not go to, he goes to anyway, and he gets corona, then you sort of make the argument that, well, sorry, I think if the entire team went, not just the one person, if the entire team went out to a place that's known as a COVID hotspot against the wishes of the organ high res, then you sort of have the situation there where a DQ would be sensible.
Sure.
But if it's just one person, the rest of the team has no control over that, then postponement is the correct call.
Yeah, but there's also so many other factors that go into it. Like all these guys are door dashing, right? So you got 5 people coming in the door, right? You could go out, like I've been out with a mask in Home Depot and have been fine. And, and then you have my neighbor who gets it from their mail or from a delivery or something like that, right? Or food delivery, right? So I think like pinning it on, unless it's just absolute negligence, and the state of Georgia's open too, right? Like everything's open,
right?
Like for whatever reason, we literally just don't care here. That just, I don't know. I think there's too many variables to like pin it on one person, even if somebody's being a little reckless.
Yeah.
Be like, this is your problem.
It's that time of the week again. Time for our analysts to give their picks for next week's games. Let's start with Ghost versus Renegades. And I think I'll start with you, Wraithyn. Who you got in this set?
Ghost. 2-0, over quick, 25 minutes or less each game.
Sure.
God dang.
Alpha? Or AJ, I guess?
Pretty much the same. Ghost 2-0, 24 minutes or less each game.
All right, Frost, is this a...
SOT's playing, 23 if Rose playing.
Okay.
I'll shake you on that hand.
Rose, it going to be less than 25 minutes for each of these games?
That's the savage alert right there in the background.
Yeah, right. Sorry about that. Somebody followed me on Twitch.
Frost? Ghost versus Renegade?
Yeah, Ghost 2-0, but if Solo Trolls back, it's going to be pre-30 minutes. If Rose playing, it's going to be going longer than 30.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But I guess that's 2-0 from everyone. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if it depends on whether it's Ro or Solo, who is in the solo lane, unfortunately, with how strong we've seen Ghost be recently. I'm going to give it to Ghost 2-0 as well. All right, the next set in Week 7 is PK versus E United. AJ, let's start with you on this one. Who you got in PK versus E United?
I have PK, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be PK 2-1.
Okay.
I think that E United have a chance to take a game off this set, especially if they are able to identify some of the weaknesses that PK have shown. But I still expect PK to overcome this set.
Sure. Frost?
E United 2-0. I think E United figured out their composition. They're going to pull out some strange artillery fire, some kind of run down, grab one person, murder them, run away. Whatever it is that they figured out, Knights is going to get the brunt end of it.
Sure. Right?
E United 2-1.
Oh, man.
They're coming back. They're playing well. I'm a Knights guy.
Yeah.
But I'm a realist.
Sure.
Love to see the Knights win. I think E United are on their way up. I think the Knights have kind of plateaued a little bit. And E United 2-1.
All right. My inner Zapman fanboy is coming out again, so I got this. PK 2-0. Stop those E United boys.
Stop them from what? They haven't won anything yet.
Well, not stop them. I said stomp them.
Oh, stomp them. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here thinking they got to win at some point, maybe.
Okay, the next set this week is Radiance versus Sanguine. And like we mentioned a little bit earlier when we talked about postponement, we don't know if this one is actually going to happen or not yet. But we will assume that it is happening. Let's start with you, Frost. Radiance versus Sanguine. Who you got in this set?
If it happens, I think it's going to be Sanguine. It's going to be 2-0. I don't think Radiance is going to be in tip-top shape, not with the COVID running around. And these Sanguine, these are my people. We have the Voodoo, we got the Vaporu, we got the Alka-Seltzer, whatever. They are healthy as horses right now. 2-0, Sanguine.
Sure. So vamos Sanguine from Frost. What about you, Wraith? Who you got?
2-0 Sanguine. If Radiance does have COVID, they're either not going to play well, they won't have gotten any practice. And if somebody did bring it into the house, like AJ had alluded to, my guess is that they are all at a point where they hate each other.
All right, AJ. Radiance versus Sanguine.
I think just got to go with everybody else in this one. Sanguine 2-0. I mean, there could be disharmony among the Radiance boys if it is just one person. If it's the entire team, they'll probably be a bit bonded, but they'll need to come over the COVID first and get a couple weeks practice in. So if you're going to be going against Renegades, this is the time to do so. And I think Sanguine have struck gold here, and they're going to get the 2-0.
Sure. I sort of feel the same way, but I think Radiance is probably good enough to take a game of it. I think it'll be 2-1 to Sanguine this week. All right, let's move on to the next set of this week, which is Space Station Gaming versus Obey. And we've seen Obey do pretty well this past week, but they're coming up against SSG, which might be the best team in the league. Let's start with you, Wraith. Space Station versus Obey. Who you got?
I would love to see Obey do well here. I think it's SSG, but 2-1.
2-1 SSG for Wraith. All right, AJ, let's go to you next.
That's me not voting for Obey.
I know.
But still hoping. You know?
I see this actually being the most difficult set to call over the entire week.
Sure.
Honestly. I think with the way that Obey have been playing recently, the form that they found recently, it's just... But I still have to go with Space Station here, and Obey are going to play well. They're going to play extremely well, but I think Space Station do take this 2-0. It's not going to be easy for them, but it'll be a 2-0.
Frost, let's finish up here. Space Station versus Obey. Who you got?
You want the real, like the reality, or do you want this crackpot theory that I got brewing right now? I'll tell you.
Let's hear the theory and then reality.
Everybody has the reality.
2-1 SSG.
Okay.
Crackpot theory. 2-0 Obey. Sino's been brewing this strange anti-auto attack meta thing that's been causing some severe losses. SSG are playing that meta now.
Sure.
They are drafting double ADCs, magical, physical, and Cherry's been on auto attack characters. If anything, now Sino, bring out your warriors again. And Chot got buffed, so why not?
Will they be playing on those?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
No, they won't be.
So now it's Tuesday,
but it's a way to celebrate.
That's true. All right, so SSG 2-1 is your actual reality pick?
Yeah, the real one is SSG 2-1. I think they could take a game off for the same reasoning, but I don't think they'll 2-0 them.
Sure. Okay, next game this week. Oh, I forgot to give my prediction. I think it'll be SSG 2-0. I think the SSG boys, their mental is in a good place. I've seen Raph playing a lot of Dead by Daylight and Fall Guys, and so if you're not streaming Smite, that means things are going good in scrims as far as I'm concerned. So I think they're playing well, and they'll take it on a 2-0. All right, let's go to the next game this week. Ghost and PK, both of them have they're playing a doubleheader this week. AJ, let's start with you on Ghost versus PK. Who you got?
I got Ghost taking it out 2-0. I think the games will go on a bit longer, though. I think both games over 30 minutes, but Ghost take the win.
Sure. Frost? Ghost versus PK?
Just from having spent a bit of time with Slaney last week, I think they've got the confidence in them for sure. So 2-0 for Knights. I could see them dropping a game. I don't think they're
2-0 for Ghost or 2-0 for Knights?
2-0 for Ghost, my bad. It was 2-0 if they're still slumping. Because I don't think the last games that they had and going against Renegades, those aren't really going to be confidence boosters. Not for them, anyhow.
Sure.
So I think 2-0 Ghost.
Wraith, what about you? Ghost versus PK?
Oh, God. I'll do a 2-1 Ghost.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? It's like reality. It's like, what do you want to happen? Or what's the reality? Like, I want the Knights to win.
Sure.
I want to see them kind of break this like plateau that they've been at. I want to see them take down one of the top three, and I want to see them do well. But I don't know that they're there yet, right?
Sure.
And so I'll give them a game, but I think Ghost takes the set.
All right, while you're voting with your head, I'm going to vote with my heart. PK2O. Come on, boys. Get it done. Chuck, break the meta or something. Let's do it. All right, the last set of this week is Space Station Gaming versus the Renegades. I think we'll start with you on this one, Frost. Who do you have in Space Station Gaming versus the Renegades?
SSG all the way. I don't think Renegades has a means to draft into, draft against, draft their own comp against SSG. I think that's going to be, it would be a stomp, but they just don't play that way. It's going to be 2-0, maybe 30-minute games.
Sure. Right? SSG versus Renegades?
2-0, quick ones.
SSG?
Yeah, SSG.
Yeah.
I think Renegades, I think this will be their bounce back week. I think we'll see more out of them next week.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, having Solo take a break from the team, maybe not. Maybe they come back and they take it to him. But until I see it, I don't believe it.
Sure. All right, let's finish up with you, AJ. Space Station versus Renegades. Who you got?
Okay, let me just quickly check all my notes here. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's Space Station 2-0.
All right. I think I'll go with the Space Station boys as well. 2-0 here. Renegades did not look super great last week, and hopefully that was, the worst of it, and everything gets better from here on out, but I don't think they have the strength to take down Space Station Gaming here.
It's also rough too with that break that he's taking, because there's like two kinds of breaks. You take a break from the team, the whole team takes a break, or you've got that Dennis Rodman. I just lost my motivation. I need to go wild out, come back in.
Yep.
SOT doesn't strike me as a Dennis Rodman. It's more of like the team environment, the atmosphere that we have here is just not suited.
Right. Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. I want to give a special shout out to our guest here, AlphaJackal. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember that next week you can catch us on the Smite Game Twitch channel at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, September 10th. Other than that, if you have any thoughts on guests for this show or other pro interviews you'd like to see, be sure to DM me on Twitter at Apam2 or at Apam Productions. And as always, be sure to check out extended cuts from this episode and other episodes, as well as extended cuts of my interviews with pro players on the Apam Productions YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you guys next week.